It's time. I've owned this thing for a long time, and ever since I bought it, it's needed the motor freshened up and rebuilt. I've had the kit on my shelf so long that you couldn't even read what the box says because there was that much dust on it. Let's get it in the shop. Sorry about the lighting. I don't have any lights in the barn here, but the battery's pretty difficult to get to on this thing. It's under the dump bed, so we just do it like this. Go right off the starter. There we go, it beeped. It's probably about 25 degrees out right now. Oh boy, she's gonna be cranky today. Okay, so this is my mini tracked dumper. Other than that, I don't have any other information for you. It's got a Kubota 2-cylinder diesel engine. It's kind of got a manual transmission with a go pedal basically. So I mean, you select your gear here. You got forward on this side, reverse on this side. And you step on that pedal. When you step on that pedal, it'll move this pulley here, and that makes it drive. You can also move this lever here. That'll do it too. This is a parking brake that's seized up. It never did work. And these are your steering clutches. It clutches and then brakes, both sides. And here's your throttle, and this is your dump. Real simple machine, not a whole lot to it. Story with this thing is, I saw it in Equipment Trader a long time ago. I'm trying to think how long that even was. Geez, I don't know. 4 or 5 years. So I saw it in Machinery Trader. It was at a dealership up in New York. They wanted like 10 grand for it. I'm like, that's just ridiculous. But then I was in one of my random searches through Equipment Trader and Machinery Trader, whatever it may be, and I was in one of my random searches, and this thing popped up, and it was $3,700. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's a serious price drop. And like at the time, I was doing a lot of like garden shed pads. So basically, you got to bring in like 5 or 6 tons of stone and whatever. Most time you're working in backyards. So this thing's 48 inches wide, so it fits through a lot of gates. So like I said, I drove up to New York and I bought this and brought it home and I used it. I don't know, I have some old footage of this fixing it, but I don't know, this is like back right when I started doing YouTube again. I built this tailgate for it. I don't think I have any footage of that. I think I was fixing a pulley or something on this, but anyway, don't matter. If I find it, I'll put it in here, and that's where we'll start this video. But basically the goal here today is pull the motor out and tear it apart, put it back together with new parts, and hopefully when it goes back together it won't have the immense amount of blow by it does, because this is our oil drip catch tube and it leaks a lot of oil, or it pushes a lot of oil at the blow by tube. So more than likely I'm thinking the rings are just smoked, which whatever. I think what happened is the dealership couldn't get it running and they overloaded on ether and they just washed the cylinders down. And this motor does have liners, so we're gonna put new liners, pistons, rings, gaskets, all the good stuff. Just go through it, freshen it up, and we should be in good shape then. Okay, we got a little bit of disassembly to get the engine out. Basically we got to take all of the cowling around off. Well, we probably don't have to, but it's gonna make our life a lot easier if we do that. So you're gonna get that ripped off, and then it's gonna be probably time to pull the wiring and fuel lines and then yank the motor out. Well, that's a bit more manageable. So this engine is a horizontally opposed engine. Well, not opposed, it's horizontal. Horizontally oriented, I guess is what we're looking for here. So you got 1 and 2 cylinders here. There's your 2 fuel injectors, glow plugs, intake manifold, exhaust on the bottom. So the pistons run back and forth like this. I don't think I needed that, but other than that, it's just like any other Kubota engine, I'd assume. So I've never actually had one of these ones apart, so this is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for me, but I'm sure it can't be too hard. The other thing is these are called APU, maybe. These are pretty common on like generators or refrigeration units for like semi-trailers or tractor trailers, because they're basically self-contained. You've got your radiator up there, everything's within this unit. So the radiator, the fan, everything's all self-contained here. So they're pretty compact. It's about the size of like a old cast iron Briggs & Stratton, or a single cylinder Kohler or something like that. So all right, let's get this belt here runs for the hydraulic pump. That should be easy enough. So we got a ground strap. We're gonna have a fuel line here somewhere. That's coolant overflow. Some miscellaneous wires, and we gotta get the main drive belt off. That's here. That's a double belt there. So we got a little bit more work to do here, but we'll get her. Well, we got everything free. Fuel lines, all the power lines, different wires, linkages, belts. The only problem is those exhaust bolts are not going to play nicely. I think this is going to require some heat. Wow. That actually might work. Freed up. I mean, worst case they break, we drill it out and just nut and bolt it. But it'd be cool if we could just run the bolt out. Okay. So I have no doubts that this one's gonna be fine. The other one's kind of in a tricky spot. There's not as much room to get my hands in there. Right. Well, this one here should be okay. Alright, we'll get that one heated up. Set for a second. Oh boy. I don't have a good feeling about this one. It just has that bad feel to it. Oh, yep, I knew it. Not a big deal. Wow. There we go. Right about now is when I wish I had a crane in here. It's not a big motor. I bet you it's a little bit heavy. And unfortunately, I can't get any machines in here right now because I got my fiance's mother's car torn apart. Guess we're just gonna give it a go. Well, let's hope we got everything unhooked. We're gonna find out if not. Oh boy. Yeah, it's a little heavy. So we just got this overflow line here for the radiator. Here goes nothing. Wasn't as bad as I thought, but definitely gonna put that back in there a better way. Well, we got her up on the table. Not without casualty though. Wasn't even my fault necessarily. I had this resting on a floor jack so I could scoot it over and hose it off. And it just fell off and caught this pulley. I've got all the pieces. I don't know. Maybe it'll work as is. Not sure. Maybe we'll have to build some sort of plate. I don't know. A little bit upset about this one, but it is what it is. But for now, it's up on the table, and we can start stripping all the parts off it and get ready to tear it down. All right, it's next morning. Everything's dried off here. Time to start tearing this thing down. Kind of gonna take a guess at where to go, but I think first we're gonna drain the oil. We'll leave the oil filter on, I guess. Get the oil out of it. And air cleaner. Gotta see what gaskets I have. I have a feeling this radiator is actually... So I think this cooling pack is actually like direct mounted to the block. I think it just works. I don't think there's actually a water pump. Could be wrong there, not sure. But the main thing we gotta get to is we gotta get the head off it, and we gotta replace the liners in there. So sleeves, liners, whatever you wanna call them. So I got the oil drained out. I'm gonna leave the filter on for now, but I think we're gonna throw you in a time lapse and start stripping this thing down. All right, we got the valve cover off, injector lines off, air cleaner off, glow plug wire, drained the coolant, and took our access cover off for the bottom end, also the starter. So next step here is we're gonna remove the valve train and then pull the head off. It's kind of strange. I've never used a 12mm so many times in my life. Just about everything on this motor is 12mm. Gotta get a piece of cardboard here. I guess, no, it's all gonna come out one piece. I still might get a piece of cardboard. I like to label things as we take them apart. Let's go. These back on the studs so we don't lose them. Guess we should probably take these little valve stem caps off. I think now should be able to just pull all the head bolts. There we go. Just had to break her loose. Alright. A little bit of coolant. Wow. The valves look really good. Okay. Why does this have so much blow by? Okay, so everything in here looks pretty decent, except I'm looking at the patterns in the cylinders there, and I don't know, it looks like, I don't know, won't really know till we get it apart, but so far I'm not seeing anything that like sticks out as horribly bad. I was thinking like a really badly scored cylinder wall, or like a detonated piston. I don't know. I mean, there is this like kind of film. It's almost like somebody used RTV on the head gasket. They could. There's no way. That's no. I mean, that's what it looks like. So looking at here, everything looks pretty nice, except I feel like they did use RTV on this head gasket. I mean, the head gasket's here. You can see that, and there is a head gasket, but I feel like somebody put RTV on it. And I'm wondering if that, I mean, around the fire rings here, where the everything looks okay. I can't really tell anywhere that would be leaking by. Pre-combustion chambers look good. I don't know, but I do know, like, this is like, it's not supposed to really be there. Alright, so we're just going through pulling the main bearing caps. I already pulled the one off. The second one. Looks like this one's got, I don't know if it's supposed to be there or not, but it's got this score down the middle. So now we should be able to push connecting rods off. Push that one far enough. Well, that's fine. We can push this one off while it's in there. So, I'm not by any means a master motor rebuilder. See if I can get you a shot here without. But if you can see those gaps, the rings are pretty close to the splits being lined up. I've always been told you want to stagger them quite a bit. I don't think that's a problem here, but just something I'm observing. So far, this cylinder here, if you can see right in the center there's some rust rings. And the whole way down there's lateral scores. Vertical scores. This one's not bad. It's got a couple of scores in the liner. This one here definitely had some issues. You can't feel them, but I'd have to imagine that's the only thing wrong so far besides the RTV on the head gasket that I've found yet. So I was looking through this motor and I got torn down pretty far, and I still have yet to find anything major. Until I was looking at the pistons. And I think I had mentioned before how the gaps in the rings were pretty close. So you can see how these gaps in the pistons were lined up pretty closely. So I started spinning it around, and then I realized one of these rings, well, not ring, I guess they're called lands, on the piston was blown clear out of the piston. That would be why this machine had so much blow-by. And it would also be why it smoked so much, and I mean, it still ran because one cylinder is still perfectly fine, but this cylinder here, that's no good. So I'm glad that we found the smoking gun here and actually found a problem. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to just hone these liners quick, 3 new pistons and rings in it, and we'll probably run the existing or the old bearings and everything because they were still good. No sense changing that out. And we're going to put this back together, but I'm glad we found a problem. Because that was starting to worry me a little bit that we didn't really find anything wrong with it. You know, I thought I was kind of questioning the head gasket maybe, or a crack in the head, but that would make sense, you know. I think what happened with this here is this machine, I think I explained before, was on Machinery Trader for like 10 grand. And I was at a dealer up in New York, and all of a sudden I was watching it, and the price dropped down to like 3,500 or 3,700 or something like that. I paid less than 4 grand for it. And so I shot up there to go get it, and they said, oh, it has blow-by. Okay, whatever, it's not a big deal. Doesn't concern me with a small motor like this. It's easy enough to fix. And I think what happens is somebody got a little ether happy, and they blew that piston apart on the one cylinder, because like as you've seen, like these are smooth top pistons, and this head, there's no dish there. I mean, these pistons come really close. I mean, there's not a whole lot of room for activities up here between the top of the piston and the head. So you know, you had some ether in there and the wrong mixture of stuff, and well, apparently you break pistons. So all right, that's enough of me rambling on. We're gonna get this thing thrown back together and honed out, and hopefully be back in working shape. All right, so got the cylinder honed out, both of them. I'm not sure what that dark spot is there. You can't feel it with anything. But anyway, got a nice hone pattern in there. Got our head cleaned up, got our block cleaned up. Just hit it with a cookie wheel on a drill. So that's nice and clean now. We gotta remember this O-ring when we put the head gasket on, because that's what gives you oil flow to the head, and without that you won't have oil pressure. So we're gonna throw the pistons back in, new rings. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure we're just gonna reuse the existing rod bearings because everything there worked, everything was tight, there's nothing wrong with it. Put new gaskets on and put it back together. So I'm gonna throw you guys in a time lapse. I'm gonna get this thing done. But before we do that, I'll show you how we put the rings on the piston, on the new piston. I did one of them already, so I'll show you guys this one. So the wrist pin's held in with this circlip, I guess you'd call it. Nothing real technical here. Kind of a pain to get out. But okay. And you just gotta push your wrist pin out, which gonna take both these out, but it's kind of a pain. Like, they're kind of tight for some reason. why they're so tight on this one. Alright. Just gotta make sure we don't damage the rod, because I don't have new rods. We don't need them anyway. We don't need to worry about the wrist pins. So they just push in there like that. Nothing wild. This is an absolute disaster. I'm sure some of you guys are just cringing right now with the cleanliness of my workspace. But it is what it is here. These are your rings. 3 rings in these pistons. You've got a thin one, a thick one, and then this bottom one's like I guess it's a wiper. The wiper goes at the bottom. Look at this again. And the thick one goes at the top, and the thin one goes in the middle. This one has like a spring in it that actually comes out. I found it's easier to separate those two. Get a little bit of oil to help work these over. Spring kind of just goes, just work it around like that. The spring's actually got like a wire inside. It's kind of weird. I don't know, I've never dealt with one like that before. And you just gotta work your piston rings down. This is kind of tedious because they try to jump into the gaps of the rings. You don't really want that. You also want to try to avoid scraping down. Kind of get under there with a pick. Kind of pick it up so when you don't scrape the end of it down. And you just get it clipped into place and it's basically good to go. Just gotta make sure it compresses. It does. We gotta do our thin one, which is this one. And then the thick one goes up top, which is probably the easiest one to put on. Just like that. Now, you want to make sure when you install in the engine that, see how they all have the gap where the split is? You want to just offset them all about, I don't know, 90 degrees. They're nowhere near each other because they close pretty tight, but not 100%. So there is a possibility of compression leaking through there. So the idea is the oil, so the idea behind honing a cylinder is it gives somewhere to trap oil between the cylinder wall and the piston. So the idea is between the oil and the rings, it kind of helps seal everything up there. And then for your wrist pin, got a new one of them. I'm just gonna make a note here. I am by no means an engine builder whatsoever. Some oil on that. And that just slides in. You see that just goes in there. Slides in nicer, a lot nicer. And this one's got different style clips. Same concept though. They don't really have to hold any load, they just gotta keep that pin from walking. So. These pins are actually a little easier to install. Just kind of these are more of like a kind of a spiral. You can kind of just start one side and you just give it a twist, it goes right in. Just like that. Now you have a piston that's basically ready to go in. And it's a good idea to put a little bit of oil on it. I'm going to try and get you guys the best view possible here. So one, make sure your rod bearings are in there. This one came out on me. Good idea to put a little bit of oil on that. Not going to hurt it. Two, I'll put a little bit of oil. Oh, that was a lot of oil on your cylinder bores. Probably don't need that much oil. Not going to hurt it though. Then you want to make sure that you can kind of see in there the crankshaft is moving there. So I normally rotate that down, so that way you don't have to worry about that getting in the way. Then install your piston ring compressor. Is just a flat sheet of steel that's got like a ratchet mechanism. And all it does is wrap around the piston, keep those rings tight. That way it makes it a lot easier. I'll show you a second here. Makes it a lot easier to get the piston started. So you can see there, that compresses the ring. Now you want to make sure your rod is oriented properly. The other thing that kind of sucks is with this. So you want to make sure your rod is oriented properly. So I find it's easy enough to just take the handle of a hammer, kind of just like that. Simple enough. And I'll spin you guys around to the bottom end and I'll show you. We'll get the rod connected. Alright, so you see in between there, that's where our cylinder rod is. We got the crankshaft there. So the reason I set the crankshaft to this sort of position, it actually works out in our favor here. So when you rotate the crankshaft around, it'll actually pick that cylinder rod up, and right there it bottoms out. So now you can install your main bearing cap and basically at this point I'll install the other cylinder and tighten that down, but you get the idea. The main bearing cap just goes around the bottom of the rod end like that, torque it down, and your cylinder's back working. There we go. All right, time to start installing this head gasket. Got our All Magic O-ring. Head gasket installed. Everything looks good there. Got our cylinder head. We'll set that down on there. I think we're gonna have to put the radiator thing back on first, because those bolts are gonna be pretty difficult to get to. All right, let's try this again. Got our cooling package on. Important O-ring. Head gasket. Now let's go grab the head. This is all clean still, and we'll lower the rig down. There we go. Okay, let's get them started, and then they are, I believe, 20, they're similar to the rod bolts. The connecting rod bolts were 23 to 26 foot-pounds. I believe these are similar. 27 to 31 foot-pounds for the head bolts. See if I can find the exact torque sequence for this. Here we go. So you just go center, A, B, C, D, E, F. Simple enough. All right, we'll just double check all this, and then we'll be ready to put our valve train on, valve cover. And we're getting close to starting it. So we've got the oil sump hooked up, valve cover back on. I'm gonna put a little RTV around the oil pan gasket. I find it always seems to help a little bit. Thin coat just helps it seal it up a little better. We'll stick this on there. Okay, got this all cleaned up. I don't know what that says, but I think that means up towards the top of the motor. Valve covers top of the motor, so I don't know, but anyway, put some of them, get them started. Okay, it's all back together. Let's throw some oil in it and put a new filter on it. So let's get this topped off with oil. I think we're gonna try and start it before we put coolant in it. But for now, let's get this topped off with oil, and then we can work on bleeding the injectors out, getting fuel to it, and hopefully this thing holds together. Go. Where did I put the oil cap? There it is. Okay. All right. Let's crank this over. See if we can put some fuel to it somehow. Let's see, we have to tie that back. Okay. Okay, so I was going to try and start this on the bench, but I figured it'd be a lot easier just to set it in the machine instead of try to rig up some sort of fuel system, power, and everything. So I went ahead and I dropped the engine into the machine here. Got all of our important wires hooked up, fuel line hooked up. I think we should be good to crank this over and try and get some fuel to the injectors. The injectors are cracked. I'm gonna have to hold this open and I'll crank the motor over. Except it'd help if I had you guys pointed towards the injectors and not the fuel pump. Loosen them. Make sure they're good there. I think I turned my fuel off, so I gotta turn that back on. Okay, take two. Still no fuel yet. I'm gonna get a jump back on it so we don't kill this battery. And we'll crank her over. Still no fuel. Okay, hang on. Let's try bleeding fuel here. Okay, got both them bled out there. Let's crank these up. Get these snugged in. Okay. Okay, we got fuel bled to the injectors. Let's give it a little bit of glow plug and see if she fires up. Okay. More glow plug. Could have air in the line too. Okay. I think it's safe to say she's gonna run. We're just gonna be working on the air bleed out issues. Alright. All the shrouding's back on. Topped all the coolant. Linkages, lines, everything's hooked up to this. So we're ready for like an official start. See how it goes. A little bit of heat here. It doesn't really need the battery jumper, but it doesn't hurt it, let's say. Runs pretty good. Alright, let's get this thing outside. We'll run it about half throttle and just let it set for a little bit. Kind of really break them rings in it a little bit. Sit and run for a little bit, let it get up to temperature, and just let it do its thing. Well, there's no leak. Very, very minimal amount of blow by. Chalk that up as fixed. Let's take this thing for a rip. That didn't last long. How did that even happen? Oh. Probably because it ripped it. So I turn around. No. No. Well, this thing's sitting in the driveway looking at me. Next thing you know, mud dog right here is trying to attack it. I think there's something wrong with it, so we called the local wildlife center and we'll see what happens. Well, guess we gotta get a track for this thing now. I mean, I kind of knew this track was gonna have some fits at some point, but I didn't really think it was just gonna tear in half. Especially like that. I mean, I was just driving it out of the shop. But you can clearly see here. I mean, it's kicking links out. It just tore. So, we'll get a new one of them ordered and throw it on. Well, there we have it. Brand new track. That didn't take too long. It only took about 3 days. I guess we should probably get these bands cut off and get it stretched out because it's still a little cold. I'm not sure it's going to want to go on there very nicely. That wasn't too bad. It's heavier than I thought it was, though. So I didn't mention this before, but unlike an excavator or skid steer or a dozer or any tracked machine, the smaller stuff generally has a screw type tensioner. All you do is you thread that in, push it out in the front idler, and you lock it with this second nut here. So just get this cranked up. Generally you want like 1.5 inches or so of sag in the center of the track. Well, it's kind of difficult to do on this because for one, it's got a different style track setup. Both the idler and the sprocket are raised, so the back of the track's kind of sloped. So your skid steer, you'll pick the front end up, you'll check the sag. A dozer, you check it from here to your front idler. So this, we're just gonna make it tight as we feel needed. Normally you use a wrench. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. We're gonna put it right back where it was. All right, now we're ready to go for a ride. I don't have any dirt to move or stone, so I might as well take the trash out with it. Well, we're doing better last time. we'll cut that pallet up for kindling. It's actually currently pretty warm here, so I shut the stove down. So when we start that back up in a couple days, we'll burn that pallet up. This rubber track, I'm not sure what I want to do with it yet. I think I want to keep it and make some sort of scraper to maybe sweep the snow off my trailers or something. Or maybe like a barn scraper. So realistically it should go down in like my storage area, but I can't get down there right now. So I think for now it's going to live in the dumper. Okay, well, this little dumper seems to be working pretty good. I mean, it always worked good. It even ran pretty good. It just had an excessive amount of blow-by, and it actually pushed oil out the tube, the blow-by tube. Breather tube, crank vent, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, I wish I had more footage of this thing, because I actually built this tailgate when I first got it, and I fixed all the latches so that they actually worked. I was going to make some sort of lock mechanism for holding these side gates on, but I think for now we're going to let it be. I would really like to just build new sides for it, because this machine's rated for 1,500 kilograms, 3,400 pounds, so like 1.5 tons. So when you fill it up, it is actually pretty close to capacity, or at capacity, but it would be nice to have sides that are a little bit taller. So I think that's going to wrap this video up. There's not a whole lot more I have to do to it. I had thought about adding lights to it, but I never really use it at dark, and there's no sense adding more stuff to it that could go wrong when you're not going to really need it. Realistically, I use this maybe 2 or 3 times a year on jobs. Maybe I'll use it a little bit more that it works better and it runs good and you don't have to worry about it blowing up. Also, it's got a new track now, which was never really a concern before. I never knew that was a problem. It was just like total coincidence that the track decided to split in half immediately after I got the motor back together and took it out of the shop. Couldn't plan that if I tried. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and if you'd like to see some more on this, I do have some videos using this on jobs. I'll try and link them in here at the end, or if not, you can look through my videos. I think it's like something called like terracing a backyard is the video where I use this machine quite a bit. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.